Today, you're going to learn 5 killer tips to help improve your storytelling. And we'll be talking with Kelly D. Parker. If you have not yet met Kelly, you're going to today. She is a professional speaker, a TEDx speaker, and she works with companies and marketing departments and professionals to help them make their storytelling more memorable. She's also the host of a podcast called Business Storytelling Made Easy. I'll put all the details below so you can check out her podcast, her LinkedIn page, and her website as well. Kelly, how are you doing today?
I am awesome, Alex. Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm so glad we finally got you on the channel. And you've come today to us with 5 great tips to improve our storytelling. So why don't you hit us with that first tip and we'll jump right in.
Awesome. Well, the first tip that I would share is if you are going to tell a story, you need to know the point of your story. So when I say point, I mean you need to be very clear on what is it that you want the audience to think, to feel, to do, to believe after you have told that story. When I think about knowing your point, I think about many years ago at church when we had a guest preacher, and I don't know if you go to church or not, but if there's a guest preacher, it's always a little dicey. Like, how is this getting ready to go, right? So we've got this guest preacher, and he gets to telling a story about a fish. So I recall that he told a story about a fish. I don't know the significance of that story about that fish or where we went once he started talking about that fish. I don't know. I just know he was talking about a fish, but I don't know the point. I don't know what he wanted me to believe. I don't know what that had to do with anything. And so now all these years later, I'm stuck with the question mark of what the heck was he talking about that day when he talked about that fish? So I contrast that with within my TEDx talk, I talked about a story about a proposal, a wedding proposal. And what we were talking about was, as marketers, as leaders, we propose to people. We say, hey, buy my product, believe in my service, come to my event. And storytelling and building connection is a great way to make that proposal very appealing, right? So there's kind of a logic behind what was the point of my story? Why did I bring it up? And so as we're becoming better storytellers, the key thing that you want to remember first is, what is that point? If people have to work too hard to understand what you're talking about or do this mental gymnastics to figure out where this story is coming into play, they're not going to do it. They're going to check out. And so one way to check yourself on it is, can you articulate very quickly and very succinctly what the point of your story is?
Yeah.
If you can, you're probably on the right track. If you can't, you probably want to pick another one.
That's a great place to start because I know exactly what you mean. Yes, I go to church. Yes, I've seen guest speakers and everybody's holding their breath. Are they going to go on some long tangent or are they going to make a point? And I think sometimes we tell stories for the pure entertainment value of it. But if there's no point behind it for our listeners, if they're, we don't know why we're communicating this message, it can really miss the mark. And so I think that's a great place to start. You have to know that point that you're driving at, and that becomes the focus of everything you say and a good way to make decisions about what to include and what to leave out. What's your second tip?
Sure. My second tip is all about tailoring your content to your audience's either their problem or their pursuit. So a lot of times we want to know, well, what story should I tell? What should I be talking about? Well, you need to start thinking outward, not so much about you, but who are you talking to and who is your audience? So once I start thinking along those lines, it's like, okay, well, what problems is my audience having, right? What things are they struggling with that perhaps I could help them with? And maybe I could bring in a story that could illuminate that, right? Or what are their pursuits? And I talk about this in my TEDx talk. It's called Business Storytelling Made Easy. It's on YouTube as well. But what do they want? What is something that my audience wants that maybe I have already gotten or accomplished, and I can tell that story? Perhaps you are a professional and you're going to talk to a group of college students, right? So you've attained a degree, something that they want, right? And you could talk about some struggles that you had, or you can put some color to, how you've overcome certain things in alignment with something that they want, right? Because whenever we talk about folks' problems or goals that they want, we're going to have their attention, right? And so it's not enough to tell a story. We got to know how to tell a good story, right? And a good story is one that aligns with where your audience is at that time.
Right. I love that because, and by the way, I'll put a link to Kelly's TEDx talk below in the description below the video. But I love that because when a speaker does this and I'm in the audience, I'm listening, I feel like if they're focused on the problem that I have, they understand me. They understand what I'm trying to get in life or out of a situation, and they're speaking directly to my issue. And it really makes me feel like they have a lot more credibility because they understood enough that I have a problem I want solved, and they're going to speak directly to that problem. So I love that. What's your third tip?
My third hit is speaking of emotion. Now, we know that stories are so powerful because they pull on our emotions, right? You just talked about it. It really creates that connection like, hey, maybe this person understands me. They get me. Let me listen in a little bit. But with that, as a storyteller, you have to be very careful to what I call manage everyone's emotional journey. So
Mm,
you have to understand as you're speaking, we are going on this emotional journey with you. We're taking the highs with you and we're taking the lows with you. And, sometimes we want to talk about some very deep stuff because it can be very powerful and very moving. But you got to remember, you don't want to end that story with what I heard Andy Henriquez say. You don't want to leave folks in the basement, like so low, right? And then you just end the story and you just leave us out here like, okay, well, what do I do with that? How do I process that, right? So I'll give you for instance, I worked with a client not too long ago, and she was hosting a summit for her business, and she wanted to kind of begin the time with a keynote with some personal anecdotes, right? Um, she had some very deep stuff that she could have shared. And I had advised her, let's not go that route this time because we've got the whole day ahead of us. And we don't want to take away from the core message that you're trying to get across by people getting stuck on these very deep moments that we just don't have time to unpack, right? That's not really the point of our time.
mm.
And so we want to be very judicious in terms of what types of details and what types of stories we tell, knowing that people are going to take on that emotional energy of the content of your story. So it's just about, weighing appropriateness.
Yeah, I love it. A lot of times speakers don't even think about the emotion. I worked with speakers who were very professional, buttoned up, and they delivered the content well, but the emotion was sort of flat and one dimensional. And so I like how you talk about the emotional journey that we go on because there might be different parts of the presentation or a message where there are ups and downs in the story, and you have to be aware as a speaker to bring them along in that journey. Think about it. Yeah, you don't want to be a downer if that's really not the main point of your talk. You want to think about the emotions you want to create and convey. Wonderful. So in addition to emotions, what's your fourth tip?
I think my fourth tip is my favorite. This is like my thing. So my fourth tip is leverage the power of concrete details. So
Mm,
Alex, I'm the type of person that when you are speaking, I'm visualizing. I see pictures of everything. If someone is talking to me, I can actually see the words in my head and I can see images that
right.
go along with it. As a storyteller, you want to tap into that, right? So for instance, it's one thing to say my dad taught me to ride my bike when I was a kid. It's another thing to talk about the purple streamers that were, fluttering in the air as I rode for the first time without my training wheels, right? So
Yeah.
it takes it to a whole nother level when you awaken the five senses, right? When you conjure this image in your mind, what did it look like? What did it smell like, right? What did you hear? So thinking about all of that to kind of bring the story to life. I'll give you another example. The other day I was writing something, and I was talking about a boy who was in my class in the fourth grade, and he was kind of like a goof off type, very
Mm,
friendly, very intelligent, but also wanted to goof off, right? So I can say he wanted to goof off, or I can say I still remember him wearing that oversized t-shirt and the corners of his mouth curling up in delight as he found various ways to entertain himself that were off task or whatever the
hmm.
case might be, right?
Right.
So helping people to paint a picture so that they can come into that detail with you, they can come into that memory, they can come into that imagery right along with you because you've painted it for them.
Yeah, enough detail so that they can picture the image in their head and they'll remember that story because of the concrete details. When you said at the beginning, the general description, oh, he liked to goof off, Like it's hard to picture goofing off, but it's easier to picture an actual instance of him causing some trouble and the way his appearance. And I love that. That's great. Concrete details will really make that story pop. And what is your fifth tip?
Tip number 5 is don't forget the drama. Y'all, every good story has drama. I'll prove it to you. If I told you a story, I woke up, I ate a cheese sandwich, and then I came back home. That's a story, but that's not a good story, right?
I like the fact that there's cheese in it.
Right. That was the highlight of the story, right? So we have to learn how to create drama. Let me give you some examples. A business example. Let's say that you're a business owner, or even you work in a company and you want to talk about the value that you bring to the table. You want to talk about some shifts and transformations that you have made. Mm-hmm. Yes, you could just start off talking about it. Like, I did this project and these were the outcomes, but it will be a better story if you create drama. How do you do that? By contrasting. So you want to talk about what was the before state? What did it look like before you got involved, right? And then you can contrast that with what you did, right? And what the outcome was at the end. So now we've created a story. We've created some ups and some downs, right? Mm-hmm. Some changes, some transformation. I'll give you another example. So sometimes we have a story we want to tell and we dive right into maybe the most dramatic part of it. But really, to juice the drama out, you got to like back up a little bit and create contrast. So for instance, it could be I worked with someone recently and she wants to share with her audience a very challenging time in her life, right? But I told her, don't start right there. You got to start with like your normal. You got to start with everybody thought I had it going on, right? I was at the top of my game at work, this, that, and the other. But behind the scenes, it was A, B, and C, right? So now we got a story, right? So you're building up to that dramatic point and you're learning kind of how to juice it out for people and get them vested in it, right? So if you think about, if you go see a scary movie, the first scene does not have, the boogie monster out with his knife or whatever, right? You got to build up to that thing, right? And really get people vested to really juice out that drama. So that's something else that I love about a good story. So don't forget the drama.
Some contrast, some drama, some before and after. That transformation takes us on the emotional ups and downs versus just saying it straight and plain. I love the example of you could talk about someone who's a big success. That's an okay story. But if they came from nothing and then they became a big success, now there's some drama in that story. Now it gives us a reason to lean forward and be like, wow, how did this happen? It's a hook to pay even more attention to this story. I love it. So I'm going to put on the screen now a summary of your 5 tips. These are Kelly's 5 tips to make your messages, your stories, much more memorable. So these are the ways you want to think about any stories you tell in the future. Integrate these points. Double check your stories to make sure they do all 5 of these things. Make sure you click on the links below to check out Kelly's podcast or TEDx talk or LinkedIn profile. Kelly, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Alex. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. It was great to have you on. We'll have you on again soon. Thanks, everybody. Take care. See you soon.